question. Let's spell out again. We kind of touched on it. What kind of work will people do in those times? Because we mentioned business user, super business person, right, who is savvy on tech as well as business side, right? But what are the professions you see that will explode? Because, like you said, automation requires a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's all going to become about the process. Companies are finally going to ask themselves, what do we actually do on a daily basis? Something that C-level don't ever understand or have the time to see. They're thinking about strategy, but the middle tier management are going to be asked that question: what do we do? How can we do it better? And it's not going to be like Six Sigma and Kaizen days where re-engineering. We're looking at how to restructure the business, do it better. There's going to be a point where that stuff is going to become second nature. It's going to be more about how do we apply technology to what we do every day. How do we empower our current business users to be able to think agnostically between operations and technology? There's a lot of trends, for instance, where companies are bringing their COO and CTO office together so that they can become one unit to be able to service the business, to make them more efficient. So I think the jobs of the future are going to be companies who provide job titles, and we can make these up and try to predict them, but they're basically going to be hybrid job titles. So people who understand what they do on a day-to-day basis as a process, but they also understand the IT applications that can go onto that process to make it more efficient. So I think, to keep it very high level, the jobs of the future are going to be people who are the 2.0 version of process reengineering that used to exist in the early 2000s. They're going to be like the hyper re-engineering people who are able to do the changes themselves and are able to talk IT and actually apply those IT solutions themselves. Those are the jobs of the future. And of course, you have those ones which can't be automated yet, which are things like people who are, Instagram influencers. There's going to be a lot more. There's different, if you look at different associations, CIPD, other companies that do research on labor markets, there are predictions by 2030, roughly 50% of the workforce in the US and Europe will become freelancers. Mm-hmm. So there is also a shift into that, in that people will become general practitioners of many industries. And basically, because there are so many robotics and so many automations in a company, the few things that humans will end up doing after 20 years from now, it will be tendered out to people to provide as a service. And because they are general people, they understand IT and process well, they'll be able to do that job well. So the whole freelance market is going to come in. That's going to change the structure of how companies, fill roles. And it's going to stop this thing of having full-time employees as well, which is a huge cost to companies as well. So a lot happening there, a lot to unpack in our 30 minutes. But some major changes coming and major changes in thinking of how companies should be structured and societies should be servicing those companies.
I'm glad we'll be bringing this up because there are resources, bombarding us from left and right, all these articles and other interviews, other videos. The point is that people would want to be people. They want to be human even in this future. So how do we see that evolving? Because psychologically, right, we are human beings. We haven't changed in how many thousands of years? So we're very complex creatures. So how do we propel into this bright future while not losing our very human, very empathical side?
Well, I think there's two sides to this. I think disasters like COVID and other human disasters that are yet to come, they are going to put a lot of pressure on companies to become more profitable because of extreme losses that happen because of situations like this. So that's going to drive the whole, we need to get better and do better and we need to evolve. Then you have issues such as, people becoming unemployed. So they have to reskill as well. So I think at some point, and you have this thing of working from home now where, there's really no working hours anymore. You just got to work all the time. So I think your daily life will fuse into working life. It sounds like a horrible thing, but actually it will mean that the jobs that we do in the future won't be so time critical. It would just require us to do them at our leisure, at different times. So it will be a lot more evolving around people's, circumstances. So I think that will happen. I think as well that as we progress into the future, there's also lots of talk about the financial system needing to change from fiat to cryptocurrency, and you have genomics as well. We have a lot of other technologies which are coming into play over the next 5-10 years. I think, though, it's not just AI that's going to transform the world. It's going to be kind of 4 or 5 major technologies, and how they all come into play is going to be interesting. But I think ultimately what will happen is, maybe it'll take a while, maybe it'll take 20, 30 years from now, but we will finally be able to be very good at being human again, which is a bit of an oxymoron. But by slowly giving away power to things being automated and being okay with that and not having an anxiety attack over that, and by the structure of societies changing in the way that we receive compensation, we will eventually start understanding that there is power in automating things so that we can have a better life ourselves. And then by having that downtime eventually, by not having to do that constant robotic work that we do today, we will be able to have more time to start answering fundamental questions such as, why are we here? What's the point of my existence, and that kind of thing. That's a bit of a positive outlook on life and how things will play out. But I think eventually once work becomes a second nature thing, it becomes more automated, we will have time to become more human. And I think ultimately the most valuable job on Earth, as we have an aging population, will be, how do we take care of our elderly? How do we pay respect to the world that we live in? How do we take care of our environment? And how do we colonize other planets as well? So we will be able to start focusing on much more interesting things after 20, 30 years from now.